Hello, my name is Alysia Piatkowski. As an artist, I go by Alysia Piatkowski, which is my full name. I'm from Toronto, Canada, and I've been painting for quite some time now. Let me think. When I was younger and a kid, my mom really encouraged doing art and being artistic and creative in many different ways. But by the time I was in high school going to university, I knew I wanted to pursue art and continue finding myself in that direction and in that way. So I ended up going to Concordia University in Montreal to study studio arts, which gave me the flexibility to try a lot of different techniques and different courses within fine arts, not just one thing like drawing or painting, let's say. I did focus on abstract painting. That was my focus throughout my 4 years, but I had the privilege of being able to do other things like photography, lithography, ceramics, sculpture. I did some performance art, textile art, many other things. Those are just to list a few. But yeah, after trying all those different things, painting was always the thing I came back to. So that kind of almost answers the first question as well. What's your background? That's sort of my background within art at the very beginning. And once I finished university, I ended up going a slightly different direction from art, but I did end up coming back to it later on in life after university. And that's when it, in a way, changed. My focus went from abstract painting to embroidery, actually. I picked that up when I finished university because it was more accessible. I didn't have a studio. I didn't have a place to go to, work on larger canvases and things like that. I lived in small spaces and I couldn't manage it. So I was like, what can I do to be able to make art still, but smaller scale and more, even less messy per se. So that's when I started going into embroidery, and I did embroidery for a few years, and that's when I started my Instagram page. I started it with just embroidery, and I was really enjoying that for a long time. I still love embroidery today. And after doing embroidery for so long, moving and whatnot, I was finally able to kind of get back into my painting and get back into art in that aspect, which is very exciting. So that only happened actually this January. And so what I did this January, I ended up going to Mexico for 2 months and living in Mexico for 2 months just to focus on my art and my painting, my abstract painting, because it had been so long since I had done any painting. It almost felt like, I was a kid learning to walk again in a sort of way. So that was really exciting for me to be able to dive into it again. So I've now started my abstract painting again. I still do my abstract embroidery as well. And yeah, I guess that's kind of a full background of myself. How this impacts how I see the world and create art. It's really a blessing, I think, to be able to make and create art, because I feel like I do see the world in such a different way. For example, anytime I go anywhere, any walks, anything, I'm driving, I'm walking, anywhere I go, whether it's here or another country, I am always inspired by everything that I see, whether it is the architecture of a building, the colors of flowers in someone's garden, and just how they've, set up their space, whether it's a platter that I saw in a restaurant that I loved the design of, or the colors. I'm really drawn to colors, and I'm really inspired by colors and color combinations. That always gets me. So it doesn't matter what it is. It could be anything, like I said, from a platter in a restaurant to a lunchbox to the way, someone's painted their home, whatnot. I'm inspired by so many different things. So it makes seeing the world really fun in a way, and really enjoyable. And I don't know, I've never not been inspired by the world around me. So it's hard to imagine what it would be like if I wasn't. And so that's why I feel really blessed to be able to have that in my life. I think it's so much fun, and it's so great, and it brings a lot of happiness and joy into my life, And the next question, did my upbringing prompt a specific reference point within your work? Not exactly. I do think that when I was younger, I think not in a direct way, but my mom and dad had me and my sister in a private school for a couple years, because we were homeschooled first, and then in a private school for a couple years, then in public schools after that, to kind of transition from being homeschooled. But when we were in private school, we were in the Waldorf school system, and they see the world differently within that school system, which I think is really fun as a child, and as a kid. We learned about all kinds of different countries and religions and whatnot, but, they, in grade 2, they talked about fairies and dwarves, and things like that, and there was a lot of whimsy in those first couple years, too, when you're younger. And my work, I like to think there is some sort of whimsy there, and with the bright colors as well, a sort of, fun, whimsical, childlike. So I can't say it's exactly from that, but definitely from that point and growing up, I was always drawn to things that were, a little more childlike, a little more fun, colorful, playful. There are some works that I have that are darker colors and things like that, but for example, I have an all blue painting, and it's a darker blue and whatnot, and it's different tones of blue, but at the same time, it's the texture within it that, there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of wonder in that. So I think that's kind of where it started, and it's always kind of stuck with me. So yeah. As for my biggest influences, I really love Cecily Brown. I think she's a great artist, amazing painter. Love the colors and textures she uses. I also love, she's actually an acquaintance of mine from university. She's out in BC now, Laurence Belize. She does some really beautiful paintings, and I love the colors she works with and stuff too. But I'm also inspired by even just other embroidery artists and colors that they use as well. But even, like, for example, I was trying to remember the name of a shop I went to in Mexico City when I was living there for a couple months. But it's like it was an interior design store in the heart of Mexico City, and the colors that they had in that store and the way it was set up, it was like so dreamy, so beautiful, super inspiring too. So those, I think, are some of my influences, is like just even places like that. So not just other artists and painters, but places I go to as well. Yeah. And right now, what I'm focusing on, I was trying to focus on my painting again, the beginning of this year. And I was really happy to be doing that at the beginning of the year and kind of in the more winter months where I was kind of feeling cozy and wanting to be indoors and stuff. But once summer hit and everything, more movement, being outside, more whatnot, I kind of did a little more embroidery again. Now that we're kind of coming back into the winter, I'm wanting to go back to more painting again. So it kind of, I noticed I really kind of flow with the seasons as well. I don't just stick to one thing all the time, which is a bit odd and unconventional maybe for some, but I don't know, I feel like I am a multi-dimensional artist. I don't just do one thing. I don't just focus on one thing. So, that does allow me to, parts of the year focus on one thing, other parts of the year focus on something else. The biggest challenge of being an artist, I'd say, sometimes it's inspiration and getting the motivation and whatnot to make art, because there are some days where I just do not feel like picking up a brush or needle or anything, and then other days where I want to work and make so much. So I think in a way it really is like listening to yourself and your body, and what you want to do. I think a lot of people ignore what they're truly feeling like they want to do. And I think it's really important to listen to yourselves. That was something that I learned over the years, is to not push myself. Like, for example, if I was like, I don't feel like picking up a brush today, I don't force myself to do it. I say, okay, if you're not wanting to pick up a brush today, that's okay. Let's do something else, So I think that's a challenge for some people to, realize, work through, and get over. And then I'd say another challenge, like, for example, when I was transitioning out of university, and being able to have access to large studios and spaces and whatnot, to then not having that access, I feel like that can be a real jump. That can be a real, like, what do I do? And in my case, I transitioned from painting to embroidery. Some people just stop completely, which is unfortunate and sad, but, it can be a reality. So it's like, figuring out how to continue, instead of just completely stopping. Advice that I would give my younger self. I would tell myself not to be so hard on myself. And I would tell myself not to be such a perfectionist. I don't need to be so hard on myself. Everything you're doing and wanting to do is good and it's all right, and, as much as I wanted to be a perfectionist and stuff, especially when I was younger, it's so not necessary. And in a way, it can really stifle you as well, trying to be a perfectionist. So, stepping away from that and giving yourself some freedom and some space to move and shift and grow. If I've ever tried any unconventional mediums or techniques, I did encaustic painting for a little bit when I was in university, and that was really cool. And that is painting with wax, if people don't know what it is. So you add color to wax and you melt it down and you paint with it. And it's really, really cool medium, and it can be difficult, very difficult to work with, because if anyone knows, wax, once it's not heated, it can melt pretty quickly, or not melt, sorry, it can harden pretty quickly. So, my school wasn't fully equipped to, do it full time, but, there was a moment where it's like, you can try this if you want to, and here's like a little bit of supplies and things and ways to try it. So I did that, and I really enjoyed it. So if anything, that's next on my list of things I want to get back to and try again is encaustic painting. That's something that I definitely want to pick up again at some point. Do I listen to music or any other type of background noise while I work, or do I prefer complete silence? It's a good question. That really depends on the day, to be honest. Some days I really want to be listening to music, and I really want to, be jamming out to something and having fun and maybe a little dance party or something with myself. And other days I want to just sit and I want to be with my thoughts and I want to just think. So it really depends on my mood and what I'm feeling that day. So it's a bit of both. Best reaction someone has had to your artwork. My favorite, I think, reaction is I referred to a blue painting I did earlier in this interview. And it's oil paint, and I used so much oil paint. I used many tubes and just would squeeze them on and push the paint around and whatnot in this painting. I love the reaction people get with that painting, because they're just in such disbelief as to, how much paint was used when I tell them how many tubes I used, and then as well as, when they're up close with the work, just to see it's really thick and it's really textured and it really stands out from the canvas. So when people really go up close to it and they're like, oh my God, I didn't realize just how much it pops until you right up beside it. And, so many people, they want to touch it. I've had people say it looks delicious. I want to eat it, So I think that's my favorite reaction, is usually the reaction to that painting specifically, everyone just being so excited about it and just being so yes, it's different tones of blue, so it's very monochromatic, but I just get such a reaction out of it. So that's my favorite for sure. What do I hope people take away from your artwork? I hope people take away that kind of like what I was referencing before, the whimsy, the magical, the childlike, the bold, bright colors. They kind of walk away in a awe, almost similar to what I was just describing with my blue painting, where they can't believe what they've seen, or they're just so wowed or inspired. Because I was saying before, I'm inspired by so much stuff in the world and just walking around in the world, that I want to be a part of that, and I want people to be inspired by me as well. And that would be the greatest honor, to make something and have people look at my work and say, oh, this gives me an idea of something that I want to create, or that color combo. Oh my God, that I really want to create a quilt out of seeing this color combo, things like that. I think that would be the best kind of takeaway that I could ask for, is for others to be inspired by my work, just how I'm inspired by so many other people out there. And yeah, so thank you so much for this interview, and I'll talk to you all soon.